Dan, did you think he was going to announce that his thumb was in his butt when he was in the accident?
I nearly said it.
Yeah. Woo. Third degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer90.com, your destination for FC Dallas gear, North Texas gear, European gear. They got everything you can want, including all the newest stuff like the Kick Childhood Cancer pregame jersey, which is an absolute banger, and the Hispanic Heritage Night top. I haven't seen that one yet, but I'm sure it'll be good like all the rest of them are. Third Degree listeners get 20% off at checkout when you use the code Third Degree. That's Soccer90.com. Some exclusions do apply.
Well, hello there, you FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode of Third Degree, the podcast, episode numbered 228. Hi, I'm Peter, and I'm with my two Dallas soccer talking friends. First, probably just waiting for his opportunity to kick Harry Maguire in the sack, in the plums. I learned that phrase the other day. Kick Harry Maguire in the plums. It's Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
Hey, no, he's just making a complete tit out of himself every time he plays football, so life hates him.
It is a sad, sad tale, no doubt about it. And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder, the original of thirddegree.net. It is Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Yeah, Peter, I'm saddened to learn that being T-boned is not nearly as much fun as eating a T-bone.
Okay, I was going to push this to the end of the podcast, but since you've brought it up, I will go ahead and start. I feel like Dan and I are getting sucked into some sort of insurance scam because I've never seen somebody so gleeful and promoting of a car accident before. Did you win the car accident lottery this week?
No, it was just absurd. I was kind of just, I thought, this is ridiculous that I've had this happen to me, up here trying to go to an FC Dallas practice. So I thought I would just have shared the absurdity as a way to make the tease of the podcast somewhat more interesting than normal because it's ridiculous.
Okay, so just to make sure, because not everybody necessarily saw the video of you, promoting the podcast, including your somewhat bent up truck, and the picture of the intersection in which it happened, and the accused or alleged assailant of your vehicle and all of that stuff. First off, you're physically okay.
I'm fine. My thumb is purple, but other than that, I'm fine.
Why is your thumb purple?
Where
was it during the accident?
I was turning left, so I was rotating the steering wheel, and it jammed into the steering wheel. So it's jammed it really good. So it's nice and black and blue and purple. So other than that, I'm fine.
Dan, did you think he was going to announce that his thumb was in his butt when he was in the accident?
No. I nearly said that.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell all the curious what happened?
It's not that crazy. It's just I was going from the stadium. I went west on Main to go to the gas station, the Quick Trip, and to turn on the Legacy. It's a 2-lane left turn. So I stopped at the light, and the light turned green, and myself and the people next to me and around me, we all started proceeding through the intersection. And I went about 10 feet, and somebody slammed into me I presume they were going from the north to the southbound, but I actually didn't see them until they smashed into me. And then they immediately, of course, tried to back up and pull their car loose so they could, I'm going to guess, get away. So I jumped out real quick and took a picture of the collision in the middle of the intersection. And then I got back in my truck, and their car was not able to run, but I was able to peel my truck off and get it into a parking lot since it's in the middle of a triple lane wide, these North Dallas intersections you see, which are really dangerous. So I got out of the intersection, but she was not able to go anywhere. And the cops showed up in force, and there were many witnesses that stopped and called the cops. And, it's a crazy moment. Thankfully, I was not going particularly fast, and she must not have been going particularly fast, but it hit my car right on the front right wheel well, basically. And her car was basically stuck on my truck, and my right, of course, it's a 4-wheel drive truck. So the front camber's all out of whack, so clearly the front transaxle is bent and pushed out of place. And so while it wasn't a particularly heavy contact, I stand there and look at it. I'm like, there's a chance this truck is totaled, because you know how it is when you knock the whole front end out of whack.
Oh yeah,
it could be frame. It's for sure transaxle and engine out of whack. The whole front hood the gapping is all off now. So
you couldn't drive it home.
No, I was able to drive it into a parking lot, but I could hear the tires screeching, just going really slow. I got out of the way so I didn't get hit further, but that was about it. Yeah.
You have insurance?
I do.
Did the alleged assailant of your vehicle have insurance?
Yeah, thank goodness. So it'll all be taken care of. But,
Okay.
Nonetheless, it's, the car's only 2 years old. So there's always a worry there that the value of it is not going to be enough to cover the note, et cetera. So that's what I'm worried about. But hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's either totaled or it's a minor repair and not.
Let's put this into perspective, though, Buzz. A Buzz 2-year-old vehicle is very different from most everybody else's 2-year-old vehicle. Buzz, how your truck is 2 years old and has how many miles on it?
55,000.
Yeah, my car is 4 years old, and I just turned 29,000 on it today.
I drive a lot. That's fair. Yeah.
Mine's 5 and hit 56. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's crazy, Buzz. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're okay. Was she a bitch about it?
I did not talk to her. She never got out of her car, and I just stayed away. I let the police handle it all. Funny enough, she actually called me later in the day, and I was like, "I'm not talking to you." No.
Yeah, smart move.
Yeah, you definitely don't ever. This I know. If you're ever in an accident, don't talk to the person. If the cops show up, let them handle it. If they don't, trade information and get out of there. Don't discuss the accident ever at all. So that's what I always do, and that's what I did in this particular case. So I'm sure that they'll work it all out. I didn't get a ticket. I don't know if she did or not. I have no idea.
How did you get home? You're like an hour away from home at that point.
Well, I have a lovely and understanding wife who drove up there and picked me up.
Oh, sweet Amy.
Nice. Very nice. Yep.
All right. Well, there is the payoff. I guess the pod's over.
Here's tiny funny story: is that a dude showed up that was from the tow company to tow my truck. For me, my insurance company sent him, and I gave him my keys, and I'm like, great. And I left. And then before he could get the car towed, he left for 10 minutes and came back, and some other tow company yanked my truck and took it while he was gone for 10 minutes. They were obviously waiting, and they sniped it. So today, my insurance company spent the whole day trying to get my truck back from these other people that took it. Because it was in a parking lot. It wasn't, I didn't leave it in the street. I left it in a parking lot.
Those guys are, tow truck guys are like Jawas.
Yeah. So effectively, someone, in a way, stole it, but they know where it is, so we're going to get it back.
Goodness gracious.
It's legalized theft, isn't it?
Did you take your license plates off the truck before you came home, I hope?
I probably should have. It didn't occur to me. It did not occur to me that I probably should have. I mean, if I find out that they're gone, then they're personalized plates, and I'll just have them canceled or whatever, so I can...
Right.
I'll report.
Well, that's why I thought, because somebody out there wants a Buzz third license plate to tack up on their wall, or especially right there in that area of the country.
Oh yeah, that's huge, right?
That's right. Like Paxton Pomykal drove by and was like, "Hey, I think I need one of those for my wall at my house." Yeah,
so that's my sacrifice for Third Degree this week, and the FC Dallas followers is my smashed up truck.
All right. Dan, do you have any kind of entertaining story like that you'd like to share with the curious today?
No.
Okay.
All right. Excellent.
Let's go.
Here we are. Huh? What?
So let's go.
We don't have a game to talk about because obviously the international break, although it was fun to see all those Dallas products trucking around for the national team. Good times. Pepe looks like he's in good form. Happy about all of that. But we do have breaking news, and that breaking news is that the injury list appears to have decided to the infection of the injury list has kind of increased or gone back to a level of increase. As Buzz, you found out you were there when it happened. Apparently, Geovane Jesus is no more.
Yeah, there was a loud shout at that contact. He went down pretty hard and stayed down for a good period of time.
Who did it to him?
I don't remember exactly. I think it was on a tackle, but I don't remember.
Totally Obrion, wasn't it?
No, I don't know. I don't know who it was.
Okay.
And I'd hate to speak out of turn even if I knew, but I don't know. I don't remember. But, I and both coach were relatively optimistic because he walked off the training field. Now, he had two trainers on his sides, and sort of holding him, but he walked under his own power, both legs off the field. And so they were like, well, hopefully he's going to be okay. And then obviously today it came out that on the coach media call that they do, the Zoom media call on Thursdays, which is why no one else with me ever goes to training, that it is a blown ACL, so he'll be out for the year. So it's unfortunate. There are some options that can take his place that we'll probably talk about later. But, from time to time, these kinds of things happen in training. They are professional athletes. They do play very hard in training. It's not the first time someone's blown an ACL or an MCL on the training pitch. So it's unfortunate because he had just now really been progressing in terms of his defensive output and was, starting to become the player that I think they were assuming when they hired him in the first place. And he's under a fairly long-term contract, so that's a player that they're looking to develop. They won't give up on him this quickly. I assume that at some point they were going to want to try and sell him on. That was kind of the point of the U22 initiative. But you have to like his progression. He's a guy too. He's a young guy who brought his family up here and recently had a kid. I think he's about to have another one. So lots of things going on in his life, and hopefully.
Whoa! Wait a second.
Yeah.
Geovane Jesus or whatever, Giovanni. He's got now almost 2 kids.
Well, I believe the woman he married already had 2 kids, and so he just had a baby that's now 3, and he's apparently having another one.
Isn't he
4?
Isn't he like 19 or 20?
Well, yeah, 20 is under 22 initiative, and one of the kids that he is based on Instagram married into is like 13 or 14 or something. So he has family, instant family, as they would jokingly say, and apparently just had a baby and that's what coach said. And about
not only 13 or 14, but also is a better defender.
Entirely possible. He is progressing though on that front. So
is the 13 or 14-year-old playing for the academy team yet?
Well, I believe she's a young lady. I have no idea if she plays soccer or not.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, how does Dan? Oh, Dan's
joking.
I love Dan humor. I love it.
It's very dry.
Hey, I got a question because it dawned on me because
Yeah.
I've never thought about this before. What happens to a locker room when a teammate injures a teammate and ends their season?
I suppose it probably depends on how intentional the tackle was, or whether there was bad blood between the players and maybe a player went in harder than he should.
And probably depends on who the offending party is.
Yeah, and who the other player is too. I mean, there's a hierarchy of talent. If you hurt Messi in training, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you just get a bullet to the head right there on the spot.
There's a funny example I like to tell, though, of not a player getting hurt, but you remember Percy Oliveras, Peter, I'm sure you remember. He came here with a fair amount of hype, and then Jeffries never played him. And after a couple of months, Jeffries used to like to jump into training as an extra body because he was, a Foreman Herman Trophy winner. And Percy Oliveras put in one of the hardest red card fouls I've ever seen in training on Jeffries. And everybody knew it was because Jeffries didn't play him. And so Jeffries just sort of jumped up and walked out of the drill, and everybody kept going and didn't say anything, because at that point, everybody wasn't particularly happy with Jeffries because the team was horrible. But, these guys are hyper competitive and they understand. And as long as you're not being malicious, I don't think anyone will hold it against you, but there are times when people are malicious, Chad Deering in a non-malicious, but definitely in a prankster jerky kind of way. You remember, I think it was Chad kicked that ball that hit the equipment guy in the face and separated his retina. You remember that?
Yeah.
So, every case is different. And sometimes there can be some bad blood for a long time. I mean, there are many cases where players have hated each other's guts on various teams, including this one. Perhaps not this current version in 2023, but certainly in its history, there have been players that hated each other. So,
didn't Deering practically murder an SMU player in a scrimmage?
Yes. The SMU player stole the ball off of Chad in a scrimmage, and so he turned around, chased him down, and just smashed him from behind and broke his leg. And Chad got red carded out of the scrimmage, but that was a pretty vindictive tackle. And so if you do that in an FC Dallas training, you're going to be in big trouble in terms of the team Chad and Deering. Whatever else. I mean, look, Chad was ruthless, man, as a player.
Yes.
I'm sure now, I haven't talked to him in a few years, but I'm sure now he'd be very nice and normal. And even off the field back then, he was very, a pleasant fellow. But on the field, oh, man, he was a demon, that guy.
All right. Well, that's unfortunate news
Yep.
that Giovanni is out for the season, and because I also see on this injury list Ema Twumasi is listed
Indeed.
here. I'm assuming that means you're going to have a Mr. Junka update for us at some point. At
Yeah,
least
should
I'm
we talk
assuming.
about Ema? What's up with him?
Yeah, let's go through the injury list because
Sure.
I was unaware of some of this stuff. So what's Ema's? Is this just a continuation of what's been going on with him?
No, this is actually very similar to what happened to Bernie. He landed on his shoulder in training, like out of a full sprint, went over and landed on his shoulder. And so he had a strain basically of his shoulder collarbone area, but apparently not nearly as bad as the one Bernie has because Ema's just going through some discomfort and is not necessarily going to be out long term. Matter of fact, I would assume that he's actually more like day to day.
Okay.
This is going to come up again because just because you're on the out list doesn't mean you can't play. It's not definitive. So it would not shock me to see Ema Twumasi also be available. But remember, there's 7 games in 22 days.
He's on the questionable list.
Huh?
He's on the questionable list. He's not
Okay,
on
good.
the out list.
Yeah, I would definitely call him day to day because he trained on Wednesday. So, whether he's going to go or not will be a question of whether they are thinking about the 7 games in 22 days or not and the workload and that kind of stuff. So as far as I'm concerning, he actually is going to be available. Whether you go with him at whatever percentage of comfort he has or whether you go with Sam Junka on the opposite side, something that coach is very, very comfortable doing. He and I talked about that on Wednesday as a definitive option, in this workload coming up. So you can flip a coin on whether Ema will take part or not, whether he'd be the guy or not. He is a better defender than Giovanni, surely, but Sam also qualifies, and Sam can also put in a lot of workload. I would bet you that over this coming stretch, you'll see a lot of Sam Junka in various positions because he can play in multiple spots, for people, and obviously give the same effort every time.
What about Giovanni's stepdaughter? Any chance we'll call her up to play right back?
No,
Okay. So I was playing off Dan's
yeah.
joke earlier.
not
Just,
technically
callback.
possible.
Just a
Colin
callback
Smith might
there.
get recalled, I suppose, though.
The podcast listener can't hear this, but Dan is laughing a lot. He just has his microphone muted.
Yeah, Colin Smith could get
so-
recalled from Birmingham. That's entirely possible with Giovanni out for the year. It wouldn't shock me to see that happen.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Now, the next name on this list is the one that really caught me off guard, and for Saturday in particular, is one young Allen up-and-coming Velasco.
Yeah, again, this is one where even though they listed him as out, I would not have said he was going to be out. Of course, I'm not the team doctor, and I'm not the team, but on Wednesday, he was working on the side, moving, cutting, kicking the ball, things like that. So I talked to Coach about it, and what happened was that coming out of the Argentina camp, he felt a little tightness in his calf. So they're sort of just being precautionary and sort of seeing how it goes. This is a kind of injury that I would call a game day decision. And on Saturday, like if all of a sudden he were to show up and be in the lineup, it would not shock me at all. I will not predict he's going to start, but I would definitely predict that that he is possibly still in consideration, and don't be shocked if he does start, or does come off the bench because of the fact that, what I saw is late in a recovery kind of behavior, the kind of thing you do right before you rejoin training, depending on how you react. Now, again, big load of games coming up, probably not going to be in a super hurry to get him back in there. So I would hesitate a little to say that he will play. He definitely would be, I would consider him more questionable than out. But I'm not obviously the person that wrote the team notes. So, things certainly could have changed since yesterday too, as well.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed about that. But this next name, Buzz, is it time just to put him down and let him cross the Rainbow Bridge? Paxton Pomykal?
Yeah. Paxton had COVID last week.
Oh,
Yeah.
good
So
grief.
he's not on the injury list. He's back in training.
So this isn't a muscle
No,
thing. This
he
is
just had COVID. Yeah. So he's not on the injury list. I just put him down on our roster because coach told me he had COVID last week. So he is back eligible to play, but I think it's important to note when guys are sick like that, like because Jesus had it 2 weeks ago.
He set out 2 games,
Yeah.
didn't he? Jesus missed
So
2 games?
Paxton
Yeah.
trained, yesterday, which means he is medically cleared to be around people. So that means he can play. So whether coach will want to hold him for the next game, I had a good conversation with coach about the idea that the same as that with center back, where they say they have 3 starters at center back for 2 spots. They feel that way about Paxton in midfield too. Paxton, Leggett, Yaramendi, they have and Velasco. They have 4 starter caliber players. They have 4 midfield starters for 2 spots. So it's not like they consider any one of those guys to be first or second team. They're going to be making decisions about them based on the tactics. So there's always only a 50-50 chance that Paxton's going to start anyway, and he's a guy whose workload you want to manage, because if you play him every game, he burns out and gets hurt again. So it actually probably is his benefit that he won't be playing every other game, or even every game. Every other game will be fine. But it's important to talk about him because coming out of COVID, there is a chance that they will hold him, for a game or 2 because of that.
Well, I saw his name here, and I was worried that maybe he had, his hip or
sorry to scare you.
Or something. Yeah. Well, no, I was worried, because Paxton's is tenuous. It seems like of late this situation. So that's everybody at this point.
Bernie,
now. Obviously, you don't.
Bernie
is not on that list.
Yeah,
Bernie's out, but Leggett and Areola and Jesus, everybody else is 100%, or at least whatever that version.
Yeah, and coach seemed really excited that Paul was back to form. I think they know they've needed him, and I couldn't get there's no definitive timeline on Bernie, because I think they're kind of it's kind of a comfort level thing. It's just as long as it takes. The 6 weeks thing was kicked around, so that's probably an appropriate time frame, but it's not like you need your shoulder necessarily to play, other than maybe shielding off a guy a little bit, but. Not nearly as bad, apparently, even though it's relatively speaking the same thing as Ema Twumasi, who apparently can go, possibly, where Bernie is going to be out for a bit. So,
okay. What else did you happen to spy while you were at practice?
Well, it's weird. They still have to use Jesus Jimenez as the other striker, because Jose Milato basically was the player that was sacrificed to fit Yaramendi into the roster. So they're down to just 2 strikers effectively. So if you don't like Jimenez,
they're really down to 1.
Yeah.
Let's all just be honest with each
that's
other
the thing, is they got this workload coming up, dude. Jimenez is going to have to play. And so is Obrian, and so is Ansa, because Bernie's out, right? I mean, I watched training, and Siki and Sabling played right wing in training because they were out of bodies, So we're in a situation where there's a few more injuries all of a sudden, just a little bit. But even if there were none, this workload is going to be ridiculous. And I'm sure, as Dan knows, when you get this kind of workload, this is the thing that really differentiates MLS clubs, in my opinion, from the other clubs that are in the leagues above them. The top 6 or 7 or 10, wherever you think, leagues in the world. You look at those teams, and they have a much deeper progression in terms of the ability of having 2 first-line guys at every spot. Dallas is a lot closer than that than they've ever been in history, but you're still looking at some pretty aggressive rotation, for a club that isn't necessarily as deep as you might want to be, particularly when you add in a couple of these injuries now.
So as you observe practice and you think about the injury list, Buzz, and contemplate all of that, where are you starting to come down on how this midfield setup is going to play out as we get now into this stretch run?
Well, I think they'll very aggressively alter shapes and tactical pairings for the opponent. There will be times where when Yaramendi plays, he'll definitely sit deeper into more of a double kind of setup than when Leggett or Paxton does, particularly with Allen in there or not in there. When Allen's in there, obviously the other 8 tends to be more deep. It tends to be a double pivot instead of a single pivot. Whereas if you have Leggett-Paxton combo, that tends to be more of an equal combo, sort of playing at the same height. And then obviously with the workload coming up, you're going to have to still see a bunch of Frazier, probably more than you like, because Facundo can't really play 90 minutes game after game after game, let alone when you play every 3 days, which is basically what they're going to have to do. So I think the tactics will dictate a lot of it. All those guys you mentioned are either in their 30s or they're potentially guys that you can't play 34 games, or they're guys that are struggling like Allen right now with a little bit of tightness, or it's just a situation where you're not going to be able to have like a definitive 11 anymore, not the rest of this season. You're going to have your 15, 16 deep is going to rotate all the time. You're going to use your 5 subs aggressively. I think that over the course of the season, he'll try and figure out, like, when he gets to the playoffs, what his best set will be like in any given game. But over this 7 games, I think it's going to be really, really aggressive in terms of rotating who's plays every other game, basically.
So in your head, and again, we probably have limited, you've got limited amount of observation of some of these guys because they just joined the team. But do you have a very clear idea of what your starting 11 is for this team?
I think if
it's MLS Cup, if this is the game.
Yeah, I do. I know who I would choose, but I don't know if coach feels like I do. If we ignore injuries, of course, in having this discussion, I think that I have a clear choice who my best 11 is. But sometimes coach makes decisions that don't chime with what I think in terms of that. And that's perfectly fine. That's almost always true of most any coach. He definitely believes this idea that he has multiple starters, like the whole 3 starters at center back idea. I think he's nuts. I think you have 1 starter and 2 guys that are okay, so that's the kind of way I feel about it. Like, I see 1 player that's the best 6. I see the 2 guys I would pick if I had to win a game today at 8 is clear to me. I know who I think the best wings are, and obviously everybody knows who the best 9 is. So, it's not necessarily up for debate, really, in my head. But then you watch coach, and it is. Right back probably was the closest position, but now that's a moot point because one guy's out for the year and the other guy's feeling it. Like if we hear about it Friday, 6 p.m. recall of Colin Smith, it won't shock me at all. I'm happy to put Sam Junko over there, but then that limits your options in terms of if something happens to Marco Farfan in the middle of the game. So, it's pretty clear to me.
Yeah, but you don't want would you like to secretly quietly?
Do you want me to
share
say what
with
it
Dan
is?
And I?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nobody's listening.
Well,
it's a safe space.
Right this minute, it's Jesus up front with Paul Areola and O'Brien. I think Ansels is a smarter player, but he hadn't been here enough, and O'Brien's been here more, so I would go with O'Brien. And then Velasco and Iaramendi in midfield with Facundo, and then Farfan, Nkosi, Ibiaga. Well, Geovane until he got hurt, but obviously now it has to be Ema and then Paz. The real question the coach is going to have to decide is, would it be better for this team to win games the rest of this season with Allen at wing and Paxton or Leggett in the midfield with Iaramendi? That's the big question that he's going to have to answer. I personally would sacrifice, quote unquote, this season in the sense of go ahead and keep playing Allen in the middle, because that's your best bet over the next 3 seasons is Allen in the middle. I don't think this is a cup team, so I wouldn't necessarily be concerned with I need to win more games this season. But then again, I'm not the one that's going to get fired if he misses the playoffs. I don't think he would be either. But Dan, I want to hear Dan's 11. See if you're the same as mine, Dan.
Jesus Ferreira 1 for 11. Martin Paz, Ibiaga and Tafari, Marco Farfan. Kind of Ema right back, who plays centre mid, Iaramendi and Alan Velasco with Facu behind, left wing, probably O'Brien. Areola and then Jesus up front. Yeah.
Oh, so the same. Yeah. I think that's pretty definitive that that's what it is. But, Dan and I both obviously look at it with the same eyes of that's your best setup in terms of with having Allen in the middle. And the serious question will be whether Allen is so much better than O'Brien on the wing that's worth sacrificing him out of the middle.
If he was not injured, would Bernie replace O'Brien in both your minds?
For me, yes. Yeah, I would play him over O'Brien. Dan?
Probably. They're not too far apart, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It'd be great to say Bernie's head and shoulders above, one shoulder above.
So let me throw this question out to you. In an effort to try to get your true best 11 on the field at any one time, is there a scenario, Buzz, where you put Leggett and Velasco both on the field, but you start Leggett more wide out left, and they can move between each other as appropriate as the game goes?
That's possible. I think it'd be more likely that you'd see something like the 4-4-2 continue with Jesus and Allen up top, and Allen sort of like a double false nine in effect. And then you would have Paul on one wing and Leggett on the other wing with Yaramendi and somebody else in the middle, whether it be Paxton or what. You could play a 8 for sure in a flat 4, or Facundo. They definitely use a 4-4-2 much more lately than they have ever before. And they used it some even on Wednesday in training. So it is in the mix. It does allow you to get, a guy like Leggett, more minutes and more use for you, particularly if you're not necessarily happy with Obrian or Ansah are doing. It does also give you the Allen higher and freer underneath Jesus kind of look. We've seen that a bit, in the last period. So, I think that tactical decision of the two versions of the 4-3-3 or this 4-4-2 or even 3 at the back that we see sometimes are all in the mix with this coach. You could make a case, I think, particularly as we just discussed, would Allen on the wing be better than Allen in the middle in terms of winning games because of the lack of performance at the wing? You might be right that the 4-4-2 is the best way to go forward because it does allow you to get guys that you would consider more of a central to be effectively wide midfielders instead of, high wings. We haven't mentioned Dante Celia, for example, at all. I don't think, while we like some of the spark we've seen, I don't think any of us are in a point where we would expect that guy to start much over Obrian, but he has made that choice recently, and certainly in this load coming up, he would also be a factor.
Okay, so that leads us to Seattle, which is this Saturday at 7:30. Seattle is Seattle. We know that Dallas has a tough time against them. They're in kind of their own weird spot as a club. What are you assuming you're going to see in terms of a starting lineup with the injuries and everything that we know about that?
Well, I think that even though I think you could push the issue and have Velasco play, I think you shouldn't. So I'm gonna say that he won't play, even though I already made the case I think that he could be available. I would not do that personally. I would go with Yaramendi and Facundo in the sort of that double pivot look. In a way, I would put Leggett in there with them as the 3-man combo, and then go with Paul and Jesus up top with, whatever you think your best other wing is, which is probably going to be, Obrian perhaps. And then the right back's an interesting question. I actually, because Ema's banged up a little bit, I'm going to say Sam Junka at right back. Recall Colin Smith so you have him on the bench so you can bring him in and shift Junka over if you have to for Farfan. And then I would go with, against Seattle, I would go with Ibeagha and I'm actually going to say
Tafari?
Right, not Ibeagha. Sorry. I'm going to go with Tafari and Martinez against Seattle and save Ibeagha for RSL on the road on Wednesday. That's going to be my guess. But you could just as easily have it be versions of that. Honestly, this coach changes things so much. It's entirely possible you could see more of a 4-4-2 look. That is legitimate. They did use it some this week. I honestly, because of these injuries and because of the way this coach is making decisions and because of this workload, this is about as chaotic as it's ever been in terms of having no clue what's going to happen. But obviously Jesus is going to be the guy and Paul Arriola will be in there. And I think that it doesn't make any sense to force Alan Velasco when you're going to need him over the back half of the season. You don't want to risk making it worse. And Paxton just coming off being sick, I don't think he'll go. I think they'll save him for Wednesday as well. So there you go.
The Salt Lake game is in Utah, correct?
Yeah, but remember, they're 500 at home, basically. So it is a place that you feel like you can compete pretty well. This is not one where you're going to go in with the mentality of we're screwed, like you kind of might if you're going to Philly or something later on.
Okay. Well, all right, there we go. It is the stretch run, man. This is where everybody has to pull up their pants and put their belt in the next notch tighter and hold on for sweet life.
With this one being the first game after a 2-week break, I think you'll probably see a pretty aggressive first 11 sort of mentality, and then you adapt after that. But the injuries obviously really, really affect things. Allen is such a pivotal part of what they do now. It's like, how do you adapt to that? It would not shock me at all to see if it be a more 4-4-2 with Jimenez starting with Jesus Ferreira up top, because that kind of gives you the same sort of vibe where Jesus works under him instead of vice versa, And then you do maybe have a Areola or a Leggett wide and more of a flat kind of shape.
Yeah.
None of those options that we discussed would shock me at all. They're all open for use, which is crazy. I've never seen a team here in Dallas with this much flexibility, which in a way is really good, but I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I kind of like teams that are just really, really good at what they do and make everybody else change. That's more the way I like to.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I always feel like the best teams in MLS are the ones that dictate how the game's going to go. And teams that have to bend and flex to their will are the ones that end up, sucking.
Yeah.
We're also at a point of the season where we get to it. I'm assuming we're going to continue to admire the Elara signing and the idea of picking up Junka and how good he's been as a utility player, kind of like the new version of Ryan Hollingshead and his ability to do different things on the field. But man, if there was ever a time that the pickup of Jimenez and Ansa needed to show payoff in some tiny way, now is the time, right? Like, just the fact that they're getting absolutely zero from both of those guys, especially at the amount of money they cost, is really, really hurting the team at this point in terms of feeling like that they've got a chance to do something down the road.
Well, Ansa's the one that annoys me the most, because they talked about how they've been after the guy for like a year. And I'm like, man, if they were after him that badly, he better be better than this. It's like, I'm hoping that, come spring when he's been here for 6 months, we'll be like, oh, can we believe we doubted this guy? I'm hoping that's going to be the case, but it certainly has been before, where that's been true. But it definitely is annoying that you can't really, especially now that Bernie's out, who had been playing really well, and Allen has moved to the middle, which means they're lighter at wing than before. So you need that guy. If you think you're going to do something, you actually need him to do something. You actually need him to be valuable,
right.
Or Dante Sealy blow up and be great out of nowhere. That'd be cool too.
I'm interested, since you were there Wednesday, post dramatic change in the North Texas weather. Did you happen to notice that the team playing with a different spark because it was so much cooler and not the trudgy 110 degrees?
Yeah, a little bit. They mostly seem to be enjoying themselves more than they have been when it's nasty. They train early enough in the morning, and training is usually so quick and good pace that it often is really kind of poppy like that. But you definitely can see that people were in a more positive frame of mind. Like, this is a very positive team right now. They don't feel down about themselves. They're not like, oh, this sucks or whatever. I think they feel really good about themselves, now that Jesus is back, and now that they've, up until yesterday, mostly over all these injuries, particularly in midfield. So, some of the new guys have fit in really well and are doing really good things. And I think they're excited about where they're going to be in terms of this season. I don't know. I've never asked any of them if they think they have a shot to win it all or not, but I'm sure they would say they do. Like, players always think they do, so it was about as upbeat of a positive session as I've seen all year, really, to be frank, which is crazy considering that it's been such a bad mid part of the year.
Yeah, well, that is good news, and it comes at an extremely important time because, beating a dead horse, but this is really when it all counts. Is all of the goofing off and maybe feeling like you can afford to pass up points early in the season. This is not the point where that counts anymore. This is where everything comes down in an MLS season, and that's what makes it different from everything
Well, this
else.
is why I always hate it when early in the season somebody's like, it's no big deal, it's early in the season. Dude, 1 or 2 points can make the big difference at the end of the year. Every game matters. It's like, you can't.
I mean, we know that, but that's not how the seasons are played out. We all know this, right? I know. Okay. Buzz, what got hit harder on Wednesday? Your truck or Geovane Jesus?
Geovane Jesus did. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
My truck was actually going pretty slow when it got hit.
Do you have a replacement car?
My insurance company is USAA, so they have amazing customer service, and I have a rental car replacement. Yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah,
When do you get your estimate back on the damage?
Well, I told you that somebody hijacked my car.
Oh,
so
that's right.
It's not
Sorry, I
even
forgot
at
that.
the deal. It's not even at the
forgot
collision
that part.
place yet. So, they're supposed to call me when it shows up. Hopefully that'll be soon.
Okay.
Right now, my car is lost, which is not good.
Goodness gracious. Okay. Well, so we've got the games coming up covered. We got the injury list covered. We got Buzz's truck problem covered.
Yeah.
What else do we need to talk about?
Well, I
Buzzer?
actually have a piece of news that may sound like it's not a big deal, but I think it's monumental.
Oh, okay. Why did we do this at the beginning?
Well, because it's a nerd rule.
Oh, okay.
So, according to Andre Zanata, and I checked with somebody else to make sure he wasn't talking out his
Language barrier
booty
issue.
or whatever. Yeah. MLS has changed the homegrown rule. You can now effectively have as many homegrowns as you want. You can sign 30 homegrowns if you want. You can only have as many of them active on the roster that fit on the 30-man roster. But you could sign 30 of them if you want to.
What was okay? Maybe I'm saying whoa because I didn't know you could only sign so many homegrowns.
Well, yeah, the MLS roster has 30 players on it, so you can only.
Well, no, I understand that.
Right.
Are you saying that previous to then, if you wanted to have 17 homegrowns, you couldn't sign 17 homegrowns
That's
if you
correct.
had 17 slots?
You'd have to waive them if they weren't on the roster.
Yeah, they have to fit on your roster up until now. And the other thing I learned related to this is they actually have had a 31st player rule for a while. Like you could have a 31st player under contract that just never played.
No, I'm sorry. Stop for 1 second. This is what I'm trying to clarify.
Yes.
Previous to this understanding of you, if Dallas wanted to field a roster of whatever the maximum roster number is of only homegrowns, they could sign all of those guys. They just have to have roster slots for each of those players.
That's correct.
What you're saying now is you can sign as many homegrowns as you want, whether you've got roster slots for them or not.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So like
Now
your
that makes
30-man
sense.
roster, it could be 30 homegrowns if you wanted to. Or if you already had 30 professionals from Brazil, you could still sign 30 more homegrowns and have them just hang around and never play. So the point is that you now, like, you no longer are, it's to combat the losing of these best players to college, right? So before you had these 10 supplemental slots on the bottom of your roster, and that's where you would have most of your homegrowns that's where Nolan Norris is, where Tarek Scott is, Jesus and Paxton are no longer on that part of the roster. They're on the senior roster.
But isn't that what the whole North Texas Soccer Club is supposed to be for?
Well, sort of. If you had if you had an extra homegrown or two, you could loan them to Birmingham, like Colin Smith is. You can loan them to North Texas, like you do when Antonio Carrera goes down there and plays. Or if you had one like Antonio, who was it last year? There was somebody that was down there for the whole year last year. I can't remember who it was. So they were effectively off the 30-man roster that way. So what Zanata and somebody else who I confirmed it with are telling me is that now you could have 20, 30 homegrowns signed and not even have to send them to North Texas. You can just have them hang around your first team. And that any given week or whatever, up until the roster freeze date, you can move them on and off your first team roster up until the roster freeze.
See, that's a weird because you have nothing for them to do. Like,
That's
what are those
correct.
kids going to do?
Get paid.
Well, okay,
And
so
train.
So alternatively, why wouldn't you want them to, at the very least, sign a deal to go to college and get time playing at college?
Well, some kids aren't up for it. Some kids want more money than college affords. Some people need the money.
Yeah.
No one wants to have homegrown stand around and do nothing. Of course, you're going to send them down to North Texas. But the point is you don't have to do this roster shenanigans of trying to get this guy in, this guy out. If you have the money as an organization and you want to sign a bunch of homegrowns and have them stand around and train, you can. You no longer have to fit them into the 30-man roster or into the North Texas roster. You can just sign them. So it's just they've removed they've basically opened up the roster in terms of homegrowns to be almost infinite, right? Whereas a non-homegrown player has to fit on the 30-man or now apparently 31-man roster. No longer is that the case with homegrowns. You can have a bunch of extra ones.
And if you sign a homegrown deal, your college opportunity is finito, right?
It is, but you get free college through the MLS.
No, but I mean, you can't then
Play.
not play. You can't decide a year later, I don't want to do this anymore, and then go play college.
That's true
ball.
of any professional contract. And matter of fact, it's true if you sign with an agent and then never sign a professional contract. By signing with an agent, your college is done. So like if you roll the dice on, the weird part is that you can have an agent advise you, quote unquote, as long as you don't sign with them, you're fine in terms of college, because an agent can give free advice just like somebody else can give you free advice. That's different.
Wink,
but if
wink.
you sign with an agent, or if you sign with anything that pays you to play soccer, the weird gray area is that the kids that sign these, that play as an amateur with North Texas, that does not ruin your college.
Okay.
If you get an agent, or if North Texas paid you, you'd be in trouble. They design Division III, which is USL 1 and USL, and probably even MLS or Championship, or you probably could play as an amateur if you wanted to, but I don't know why you would. NPSL, USL 2, they're all designed to keep your college eligibility if you play as an amateur. But that's different.
Totally different subject, and something that popped into my head that I thought about the other day, and I meant to call you and ask you this. Have we ever found out, and if we've talked about this on the podcast before, I'm sorry, I'm getting old. Have we ever found out what players Dallas have listed or, tabbed from other clubs in the area as they've got options on? I forgot what this is called. You know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
right?
it's the list inside. Well, the external list. Yeah, I've been told 4 or 5 names. I've never got the official list. I put together my own version of the list, just making some guesses, and I did it on the website. But that's a very, very closely guarded secret.
So
even the ones
that's not anything that's ever published.
Oh, hell no.
All right.
No.
And just for those listening that don't know what I'm trying to talk about, because I'm expressing it poorly, this is every MLS team in their homegrown market
Yes.
gets to essentially put an ear tag on a certain number of players that are not even in their own academy.
9.
So if that player decides they want to go play in MLS, they get first dibs on them.
Yeah, 9. Basically, like it used to be every player in your home territory. So literally it was 1 million players. Well, now it's only 9. But they don't even tell the 9 players. So they're not going to tell me if they're not even going to tell the 9 players who they are. It's a league secret. And even the players, like, you can only tag 45 players inside your own academy. The rest of them have to be able to move as well. But, they don't tell me that list either. That also is a very closely guarded secret. The other side of the coin is you can now move from academy to academy, but the new academy has to pay you. Has to pay the team that you get the player from.
Do you mean exclusively within MLS academies,
Yeah.
or from like Texans to FC Dallas?
Oh no, just MLS Academy to MLS Academy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
not Texans. You could just poach away. Well, you shouldn't. You should pay them, but they don't. They just take them. This is a Next Pro Academy, MLS Academy problem. This compensation for a player, unless the other club releases them, and that's different. But a lot of times they just get released because they're not important.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's a changing landscape. But I think it's crazy that they now let you sign as many homegrowns as you want. You can try and keep more guys from going to college if you think they're worth building. You don't have to try and squeeze them into the roster anymore. That's the important part. Because before you'd be limited. You're like, man, there might be 8 guys I want to sign, but I only fit one of them on the roster. Well, now you can sign as many as you want.
Good stuff. Okay. Anything else, Buzzard? This truncated episode of the podcast.
It's a short episode. We didn't have a lot to talk about. There's a bunch of games coming up. That's it, really. North Texas is almost done. They got 3 or 4 games left.
So Seattle Saturday, Salt Lake Wednesday, and then who do they have the following Saturday weekend?
Columbus. Pretty good team.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Dan, you've been awfully quiet today. Do you have any kind of confessions or we were going to play our new game.
What?
Don't you remember, Dan? Today's the day we were playing the new game.
Sure.
Actual English soccer club or not?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Did you have one off the top of your head you'd like to let Buzz and I guess as if it's a real one or not?
Melchester Rovers.
Melchester Rovers. Buzz, this is your podcast. I'll let you go first. Is that a real English football club or not?
Well, since it's the first one, I'm going to say yes, it's a real club.
I'm going to say it is not.
This as well, because it's not.
Oh.
Point for me. Excellent.
Melchester Rovers was the team from the long-standing comic strip Roy of the Rovers.
Oh, I know the comic strip. I've heard of it.
And for a while, you could actually buy their jerseys.
That's fun.
That is cool. And then Dan, today in the Discord, you suggested that maybe we make an attempt to say a player's full name.
Yesterday I was sitting at Love Field and I happened to see on the Premier League full roster lists that Elijah Adebayo, the Luton striker's full name is really, really long.
I'm trying to find it in the Discord again. Where did you put that? In the FC Dallas room, or did you put it in the...
I think General Soccer Talk, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, I was trying to find it because I thought that would be funny to try to see if I could say it because I'm so bad at this, which is stupid considering I'm a soccer radio host. Okay, here's my attempt. Elijah Anuluwapu Oluwafer Ameni Oluwatomi Oluwanalana Ayaminkinlin Adebayo. That sounds like a Beatles song being played backwards.
Yeah. I think there was a recipe for muffins in there too.
Was I even close, or do you know, Dan?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to hear you try and say it.
Were you going to try to say it?
See it be Elijah Anuelawapu Oluwaforenmi Oluwatomi Oluwalana Ayamikilaine Adebayo.
Now will you...
I can't even say his regular name.
Yeah. Now will you say cheeseburger?
Elijah? Cheeseburger.
He sounds so defeated.
Anyway, in a slightly more important topic, definitely worth keeping an eye on the fixtures in the Western Conference this weekend because, edge of the playoffs. Now you've got oh crap, I lost where I was. Austin and Portland are point behind. They actually play each other.
Oh.
Minnesota plays Sporting Kansas City. Minnesota being 3 points ahead, and Kansas City being 2 points behind. So the league could eat itself this next couple of weeks.
I would love that. And because I haven't been paying attention since the news was broken the other day, has there been any update on what's going on up in New England today in terms of the players refusing to train? And I know they fired all the coaches. They banished Bruce into cancel land, and somebody else is now coaching. But do we know, are they actually going to play a game?
Well, the two things I saw was that they made their next pro coach their head coach of their first team, and it was reported that the coaches all signed NDAs before Arena resigned, and Taylor Twellman confirmed that. So that's a pretty good confirm in terms of New England. Taylor is very hooked in there. So the old MLS NDA strikes again, so we may take a while before we actually learn anything.
What was the incentive to sign the NDA if they knew they were getting shit canned?
Well, it was before Bruce resigned. So sometimes, I don't know anything about this case at all. I'm just going to tell you that sometimes there are cases where someone will say, okay, I'll go ahead and resign instead of fighting this if everybody signs NDAs. Because they don't want to then resign and then get blasted. They're like, okay, I'll resign and eat it, but you're not all going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So that's usually why that happens. I know nothing about this case to know if that's what happened in this case, other than Taylor confirmed that the coaches signed NDAs before Bruce left. I could not tell you whether it was the condition of him resigning or not.
Okay. Now, since you don't really know much about maybe Dan knows more about this, but I will ask. So while just going through my news feed and stuff, I keep seeing this news that what's-her-face, the blonde-haired Canadian player that's on the MLS 360 broadcast, Kyle, what's her name?
Kaylin Kyle?
Yeah, Kaylin Kyle, that she got suspended. I didn't even know she'd been missing from the set because she had been suspended because apparently several weeks ago she said something on the broadcast that intimated that Bruce Arena had said something racially, something racial, I think is what, maybe I'm telling this story wrong, but whatever she said about Bruce Arena, and I think has somehow linked this whole string of events that have happened subsequently. She got suspended from the broadcast. Have you guys not seen that story?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. She said that it was over a racist remark. She essentially assumed she spoke out of turn, and you can't do that when you're on television. So the network suspended her for a bit.
But now is she somewhat vindicated?
Ooh, she actually said it on Sirius XM. It wasn't even on Apple TV.
No, she's not vindicated because no one will say what he said.
Yeah, but if I guess that's my point, Buzz. If we find out the reason why everybody signed NDAs and this is all kind of going the way it's going is because Bruce said something naughty racially, does that vindicate her?
It vindicates her in the sense that, like, oh, look, she was right. It does not vindicate her in that she was a talking newshead representing the league's broadcast, and she guessed as to what happened. You can't do that in news. You can't guess. You can say you're guessing.
I'm going to assume she didn't guess. I think she's just repeating something other people have told her is what happened as fact. And you're right, Buzz. Even that is probably incorrect.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So, interesting.
Not in her job, you can't do that. If you're some Yahoo on a podcast, you can do what you want. But if you're the host of the league's own production Apple TV deal, you can't just say what you heard or what you think. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to validate it, or you're going to get suspended, which is what happened.
Think of all the money she saved on makeup she didn't have to use those days she was on air. So, good for her. I'm glad she recouped some income.
Wrong.
That way. All right. Yeah. Well, I don't have much anything else.
Well, that was a fair bit considering there wasn't a game.
No, we're good at filling an hour.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, this is your I know you're just itching at the bit. You got too much, but this is your last chance. Anything else, sir?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay, he's good. Everybody's good. And Buzzard, thank you. I'm glad you're safe and sound. I'm sorry about your truck. Hopefully, maybe you'll get a new truck out of the deal.
Oh, we'll see. The finances could be funny, depends on valuations. But I would also want to point out that Dallas has a game or two in hand on, a good percentage of the league. So they do have that going for them, which is nice.
Always bringing it back to soccer. Good for you, Buzz.
Yeah, people don't listen for our clownness. They listen for actual soccer.
Oh, I thought they loved us because we're charming and funny guys.
Well, that may also be true.
Third Degree, the podcast. Funny and charming. It's the subtitle.
Sure.
Okay.
Third Degree, the podcast is brought to you by Soccer90.com, your ultimate destination for FC Dallas North Texas Soccer Club and European gear. They got all the brand new pregame tops, the Kick Childhood Cancer Top, that's hard to say, the new Hispanic Heritage Night, get those special jerseys. Third Degree listeners get 20% off at checkout when you use the code Third Degree. Some exclusions do apply.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. It's always fun to talk to you. We will talk to you. I will do that again. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious fan. We will speak to you next week on the heels of not one but two games of soccer on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Thank God the international break's over.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.